Well, today I want to talk about why the order of your effects matters a lot, how to take advantage of some features built in Reaper, and how to work a little bit faster for different stages of your... And the problem when trying to make comparisons is that you have to level match and match the volume of the audio example. So try to do one thing at a time, and how to be able to switch from one send to another without having to hear unnecessary clicks. So what I'm doing here is I'm using set solos and 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, and I have that available on my keyboard. That way, when I hit that action, I can just switch and I don't hear any jumps. So if I unmute the originals, mute the frozen tracks, change the solo from one to another, there's no clicks. There's no clicks, and that's super useful. How I started building the chain is I first set up only these two, and I want you to try and really listen to the differences. Remember that the solo action works for the last track touched, so you have to have this track selected so you can do the switching. So what's the difference between this sound? I'll give you 2 bars of each. And this one. Again, without me talking. Were those balloons? How did that happen? That's super strange. What differences do you listen? I'll play it again. Since saturation is really related to compression and it reacts differently in a non-linear way, I think that you can concentrate on different parts of the sound time-wise. This is a different way of trying to listen to stuff. You can concentrate only on the transients, but concentrate only on the transients for this first listening. Only on the transients. Is it clickier? Does it have a lot more high frequency or less high frequencies? Now, I want you to concentrate on the sound of the overheads and more than that, the room, because that's a release of the dynamic reaction of saturation. Concentrate on the tails of the sound, the snare and the cymbal, the snare on like the roomy sound. And of course, we have to talk about probably the most obvious thing right here. So on the left side of the screen, it's my first version, and on the right side of the screen is my second version. And of course, the parameters aren't exactly the same. I want to push them so I sometimes know what's actually going on. If you look at my saturation on Casrock, it's pretty much the same, because I want to know how does the Casrock reacts to different amounts of suppression, and that's what I'm trying to listen to, and that's how I got to different sounds. And I really encourage you to try this. Try pushing really up the set resonance control, either de-essing or doing some multiband controlling with the Nova TDR, that I have a really long video, and it's probably one of the most seen videos on my channel, and I will link it in the description. And it brings me to different results, but I always get to some result. Sometimes you might want to go and make a commitment with going down one path, getting the best out of it, and then going up through a different path, getting the best out of it, and then comparing them. And remember that in Reaper, we can use the action normalize items, peak, RMS, LUFS, and this is something I do a lot. So whenever you have 2 audios and you have 2 MIDI items and you have 2 media items, you can just hit that normalize, and I suggest that you might try something like momentary loops And I suggest that you might want to try around -21 because that will give you enough headroom so you can push the level if you need it, but it won't clip super fast. And I know about 32-bit float. I don't care about it. It's just a suggestion so you have your levels clean and you have ways to go up and down when necessary. After doing that, what I started doing was thinking about they don't both fit in the screen. Thinking about if and how much EQ they might need, fill better the spaces against my chords and my bass. And I did some different movements. I decided to try a mid-side EQ. It worked for whatever I was trying. So once I get a result from different orders, I can probably run into the rest of my chain using the same order of maybe EQ and extra compression or limiting, so I can add punch, control a little bit more something, or whatever I feel I might be missing. And I'm just using the 609 by Arturia. That's a great compressor. I love it. And as you can see, again, the parameters are a little bit slightly off from one another. And even though this threshold looks really low, it's not compressing as much as you might think. Same thing with the limiter built in. I'm driving it down because I want some extra distortion from this section sometimes, and I want this to control my transients and my envelopes of the drums. So I'm doing a multi-stage control of the sound itself. And for me, the most important thing here is the result itself. So I want you to listen to version 1 in this like purple lavender color, how it starts changing from the original sound and how I end up with the last version of it. First alone and then against the rest of the instruments, so it really falls where it should be. Okay, so Golfos, saturation, EQ, compression, now the version 2. First the sound again without processing, saturation, suppression, EQ, compression and limiting, so version 1, only suppression and saturation, version 2, version 1 adding EQ, version 2, adding compression and limiting, version 1, version 2. Play that part of the video back as many times as necessary, and I hope you can really listen to the differences between them. And now, against the music. I have it more or less balanced, but this should work. Version 1. Version 2. The playback is stopping because I'm also using this action to toggle stop playback at end of loop if repeat is disabled. And I have this set up on my custom toolbar, and I have a video on how to make your custom toolbar. So if you're interested in that, go check it out. If the fader is not really getting the balance out of it, just freeze the tracks, flatten them, normalize the media items, and then try to figure out how much you have to push the fader, because now the sound source is at the exactly same volume. And that removes one of the stages, so we make a little bit less of a mistake when we try. Whatever chain you like the most, just remember that you can again go into the FX chain window and save it as an FX chain. So I can save this as bass processing, bass drum, acoustic, blah, 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 blah. Remember that I like to save my chains with everything bypassed. That way it's not way too heavy on my CPU if the chain is a little bit longer or the session is already big enough, and that removes a little bit of the strain on my CPU, and then I can turn them on one by one. You don't have to keep them in this order, and I wouldn't save two versions of it, one in one order and one in the other, because again, it really depends on your sound source. So if you're trying to mix for a client or for clients, you need to be able to adapt to different sources that will arrive to your studio. But if you're trying to only make your own songs with your own sounds, it's probably best to try and find one way that it more or less works. Try a couple of versions of it and save presets of everything. So for example, I could save this one as save preset as suppression before saturation, something like that, whatever it is. And whenever you're loading into a new session, you can right click before loading and you can add with a preset loaded in mind, or you can just use your default and start adjusting from there. There are a ton of fine tunings that we can do using this. Sometimes I like to do it more visually, especially when teaching in different tracks, because I feel it's easier to visualize what's going on. But if you don't want to go that way, remember we also have the Paranormal FX router, and you can set up parallel FX and you can build two different chains, more or less level them out, and you don't have to see more tracks down here. That also works. Whatever works for you, that's what you should be more or less pursuing, so you can get better sound out of anything you're working with or on. I hope this video has been a little bit useful for you. I really believe on training our listening skills. It's something that I've been doing for a while now, and I hope this entices you, or this is interesting enough for you to take some time and try to improve your listening skill and your listening habits. I never listen too loud because most of the time I have to take a lot of critical decisions, and if my ears get tired, then I probably will end up doing the wrong movements during sessions that might last for hours, because I usually work with clients and I can also get used to the sound of whatever I'm working with really fast. So I have to pay attention to how am I feeling, what am I listening for, what's my listening mode, where am I trying to get to. It doesn't have to be a final objective. Sometimes I'm just exploring what kind of sound is coming out of a different processing chain. Maybe I'm just following different videos and making chains that more or less match the videos, even if I don't have the plugins, and I try to get the sound out of that chain of whatever I have to work with, and that really improved the way I started using my plugins and making small and critical decisions during all of my workflow. If you like this kind of videos, I have a Buy Me a Coffee link down below. I really appreciate any kind of support that you can bring to the channel, such as a like, subscribe, hit the notification bell, share, leave a comment, or anything that you think of. And always invest a little bit of time on comparing what your plugins are doing. Straight from Mexico City, my name is Juanchis, and thanks for listening.